All right, we're back, and we left off with we finished local, okay, and we explained that that's already useful. At the end of that, I said I was going to pause it and then continue, but I decided to actually stop it and make a new video. So this is now officially part two. The video is getting too big, so I made this a part two. All right, so we have we're going to continue with part two, where we want to understand remote repository and we want to understand what the advantage of them is. A remote repository is another repository hosted someplace else, such as GitHub, right? And it's a copy of what you're working on. But they're actually two different repositories, right? Because your repository is here locally, right? This is your repository right there. You're going to make a copy of that and send it up to GitHub and then keep them synchronized. So why is that important? Well, it's important for backup, right? Like I keep, even if a project is only mine, I tend to put them on GitHub anyways and just make it private. You can make repositories private or public. So as long as it's not super secret and whatever, I just put it up there as private because like, even if it's private, like, still don't do anything dumb like committing passwords or credit card numbers, nothing like that. But if it's private, you can be reasonably sure no one's really going to look at it. But you always have to remember, like, of course, the people at GitHub can look at it, like the company can look at it, like so still be careful with what you put up there. But it's a backup, right? So that's an important distinction. Synchronization. You can go between machines. So if you have two different computers, you have two different locations you work in, maybe two different operating systems on the same computer. Like I do that. Like I have a Windows computer and I have Windows operating system and a Linux operating system on the same machine. If I ever want to open up and program something in Windows, which I typically don't, but I could, right? And I could synchronize between those two different operating systems on the same machine or different machines, whatever. Collaboration, this is the big one. Okay, that's the one you're going to encounter most of the time. That's the big reason. You're going to work with teams. You're going to work with other people. You don't code for yourself. Okay, typically. So you need to work with other people, and we need a coordination space for that. So remote repositories add that coordination space. And the idea is that first process, that whole like develop and test and add and commit, that whole process, that's here, right? That we already did. And then what you want to do is when you're ready, you push up to a repository and that sends the code online. Okay, so we're going to go through that process. All right. So first thing I want to do is create an empty Git repository. So if you remember in part one, the first thing I explained was there's two different directions you can go. You can start local and go remote, or you can start remote and bring local. Okay, and we're doing the local to remote example, right? So at this point, we're going to create an empty repository, but be aware that you can do the other way too, where there's already a repository and you want to bring it local. So that's the opposite way. All right. So to create a new repository, what we do is we come out here to GitHub here. All right, and go to repositories, or you can, I think the new button's pretty much everywhere, right? Click new, and it's going to bring this up, and I'm going to do git demo. All right. So I'm going to say git demo, and I'm going to write demonstration repo for video tutorial. I'm going to make it private. Okay. I'm going to no template, no readme, no git ignore, no add license. I don't put anything in there. You don't want to put anything in there. If you do, you'll end up with a problem. So I'm going to probably mention this a few more times. If I were to put anything in here right now, like if I were to check and say, oh yeah, I could use a README, and I click yes on that, okay, it seems like a pretty innocent thing, right? Like let's put a README in there. Let's like add a license, okay? Let's start with something, right? It seems like an innocent thing to do, but you'll screw it up, okay? Because what happens is once something goes into that repository, and then you try to connect your local repository, Git's going to complain and say, wait a minute, I can't put these files up there because there's already a file there that's ahead of these files. Like it causes a synchronization issue. So we don't want to put anything in the file in the repo to start with because we already have our files. If you want to read me, if you want to git ignore and you're doing it this way, then put them local, then send them up. Okay. Now, if you're just starting one remotely without a local, then maybe you want to add that stuff, right? Because you can do that too. You can create a repo remotely before your local, put some stuff in it, and then pull it back down. So all the combinations are there. Just don't try to mix and match them. Like don't put stuff remote and local for the beginning process because then Git gets confused and then it won't let you do anything. All right, so I'm going to leave all those off and say just create the repository. And what I'm going to get is just a configuration page that says, okay, you got nothing in here. So like you got to start somewhere. So what would you like to do? Would you like to upload some files? Would you like to create a new repository in the command line? Would you like to push an existing one? We have an existing one. So this is our case. Okay, let's go back to the tutorial. So we create a new repository. We want private unless you intentionally want it to be public. For this example, we did not add any files, and you should not either. GitHub will then show the commands. Okay, so we just did all that, right? There. And here's an example of why do we want it to be empty? Because our repository already has a first commit. If the remote one has a first commit too, they conflict with each other. Okay, that's the idea. That's why we have to start empty. So I just showed you this process, right? This is the page I filled out, and then this is the resulting page. Now, this is where you have to set up your security. Okay, now I'm not going to do this step because mine's already done. I'm just going to tell you how to do it, and then you do your own. Okay, so and I don't want to do this because if I do this, it'll screw up my own stuff. So what you have to do is you have to generate a secure shell key. It's an SSH key. Okay, that stands for secure shell. You have to generate a key. Okay, and what generate a key means is it's going to make two keys. It's going to make a private key on your computer and a public key you're going to put on GitHub. And those two keys coordinate with each other. The public key is what it says. It's public, which means anybody can see it, and they can't use it against you. They can't use it to access your stuff because you're keeping the secret, the private key on your machine. Okay, so to create a private key, you want to execute this command. So this is all one command. I'll probably fix this up, this presentation up so that this shows on one line. Like this should be on one line. Okay, so that's you're gonna do that. Okay, so I'm gonna copy that. I'm not gonna execute it though. I'm just gonna paste it. Right. So you'll do that, and of course you want your actual email address in here. Don't leave it as your email at example. Right. Like put your actual email address in there. Right. So this is not a real email address, but I'm just putting it in there for the hell of it. All right. So you'll do that. Okay. And again, like this should be on one line. So like I'm gonna have to fix that so you guys don't get screwed up. Like that should be one line like that. Okay. So put that all in one line. And if I were to hit enter right now, it would create a key. Okay, but I don't want to. So just pretend I did. All right. Now you have to add the key to your SSH agent. So you'll do this again, one line. Okay. So I'll fix this up to be done proper. Okay. So like we're gonna do that. All right. Once you do that, all right, it's gonna add the key. Now, where is that key going to go? Okay, I'll show you where it is on Mac and Linux. I'm not sure where it goes on Windows, but you'll be able to find it. So what it does is it just creates some text files. That's all. So if you let me open up a new window here, all it does, that step, all it does is create a couple text files with keys in them. Okay, so and where are those things? Well, they're in your home directory. It's going to be something similar on Windows, but I don't know exactly where. So it's going to be in your home directory. There's going to be an SSH directory. You can go in there and you can look at them. Okay, so I have a bunch of keys. All right, so I have several keys because I have different accounts and I connect to different things. So like these are my keys for my ACC account. These are my keys for my personal account. These are my keys for my my consulting account. So the company I consult with, they have their own private stuff, so I need a key for them. So you can have more than one key. You guys, since this is obviously you're watching a beginner tutorial, this is going to be your first key. You don't have to do any of this. You don't have to have multiple keys. All you need is one key, okay? And you just give it a generic name. The only reason I have specific names in here is because I have lots of different keys and I know what I'm doing and I know how to do this and I know how to configure this all. But for you, all you're going to do is just create the key, add it to the agent, and done. Okay, and it's going to give it a name automatically. And the name it's going to give it is this. Okay, so when you look inside that directory, you're going to see this name right here. That's going to be the name of your keys, and that name's going to be like here and then like here with a .pub. And if you look at it, okay, I can look at the pub one. Like doesn't matter if anybody sees it. Okay, there's a key. Okay. Now I don't want to show you the other one because technically if I showed you the other one and you had both keys, you could get into my account. Right? So I don't show you, there's a key in here too, which I don't show you because that one's secret, right? This one, anyone can see because that's the one that coordinates with the private key, okay? So that's my public key, and it doesn't matter if anybody sees it, right? What you're going to do is you're going to copy that key, okay? So you just saw me do it, right? Like you saw me go into this repository, and I can copy the key. I can do this, okay? It doesn't matter if you copy the email address at the end or not. Like that's not part of the key. The key ends right there, okay? And you can copy it, and you can see that like it's in the clipboard, right? I can like paste it someplace else if I want to, okay? So that's the key. There's lots of different ways you can copy it. You can go into the directory and you can do the cat command or whatever command works on Windows. You can just open up a text editor. You can click open and then go to that directory and just open the file. You just open the file just like you see it here, right? So you can do lots of things. You can any way you get to it, doesn't matter. You go and open it. Then you go back to GitHub and you paste that key into GitHub. And I'll show you where to do that. So you go to your menu, you go to settings, and then in settings, you'll hit SSH and GPG keys. You click on that, right? You say, now I've already got my keys in here. That's why I don't want to do this myself. You click new SSH key, and then it'll give you put a title on it, whatever doesn't matter, whatever you put there, and then you paste the key in. So you paste the key in like that, okay? Then you hit add SSH key. I don't want to do that, but that's what you do. So you click add SSH key, and you've got your key in there, okay? So it's that easy. So once your key is in, you can go back to here and you want to test it. So once the keys are made and they're registered, you got one on your end, you got one on the public end. You come out here and you test the key, okay? And it'll say, hey, you've successfully authenticated. There you go. That's it. That's what you need to see. You need to see that message, okay? So that's it. Once your key is authenticated, you are ready to connect things, all right? So this screen just shows you that public key area that you added in the GitHub. And now we want to connect them. Okay, so we have these two different things here, right? We have out here, we have this repository out here. Oh, wrong window. Sorry, let me get rid of that window. All right, this window. Okay, so we have this repository out here, this right here, this thing, okay? And we also now have a repository out here, this Git demo repository, but there's nothing in it. In fact, when you try to go into it, all it tells you is like, what would you like to put here? Like, how do you want to put things in here? Well, what we want to do is this step. We have an existing repository we want to push from the command line. So we want to do this, okay? We want to copy that line, right? And notice the URL. That URL is a SSH URL, okay? It's important because there's different kinds of URLs, all right? There's an HTTPS URL too. See, here, this is different, okay? You want the SSH one. Notice when I change these, notice my commands change. You want the SSH one, okay? So we're going to copy that. We're going to copy this right here. So make sure it's the SSH one. We come out here, put it in, okay? And we're going to say git remote add origin. Let me explain the pieces, right? Git is your git command. Remote is telling Git what you want to do. You want to work with remotes. Add is saying, I want to add a remote. Origin is giving a name to the remote. Now, you can technically put anything you want there. Origin is a variable name. You can say whatever you want. You could say dog, cat, whatever. Doesn't matter. We typically say origin, though. So unless you have a reason to change it, just leave it as origin. And then you just have the SSH link. Now, I have to do one step. You will not do this. I have to do this. I have to add ACC to the end of mine because I have multiple keys and I have to make sure I tell it which key to use. But that's not going to apply to you. You only have one key at this point. Since you only have one key, don't do what I just did. Like you just leave it, you just copy paste. Okay, so I do that. All right. And now let's go back to the demo, the presentation. I need to verify it. Don't ever do anything without verifying it, right? Again, this goes on one line, and before I post this video, I'll fix all of these that are supposed to be on one line. All right, so I want to check my remote. Let's make sure I got it in there properly. Everything you do, you double check. Okay, so just total side note. Okay, if you're going to be a programmer, if you're going to be a technologist of any kind, you never ever do anything without double and triple checking everything, and you do it from two different angles, at least three different angles if you can, right? If you ever do any work and you just finish it and go, I did it right, you didn't, you did it wrong. Okay, you just didn't. There's no way. Okay, so you always check everything after you do it. You make a file, you check the file exists. You update a file, you check the update exists. You add a remote, you check the remote exists. You commit a file, you check the commit exists. Always. Okay, that's just always just proper working procedure. So these look okay. So I'm going to assume they're okay. All right, so now we've added our remote. What does that do? That it connects the repositories. It tells my local where my remote is. Okay, so what's the next step? Well, let's send the stuff up there. Let's push the stuff up there. Okay, so I want to send my code up there. So that looked like it worked. Okay, if you get a message like this, it worked. And now we can see it worked by going out and checking it. Okay, we can go out here, and if I refresh the repository, now it shows me they're there. Here are my two files. This is my commits. Remember the last commit I made was add a goodbye line, and here are my two files. So they're up online. All right. So notice this first push said git push u origin main, and then after that we only have to do git push origin main. And actually you can set this to just default to origin main, so you can just say git push if you want to. The difference between these two is the very first time you put the u in there, and it tells Git that you're sending it upstream. Okay, you're sending it up to the remote, and it's an upstream relationship, meaning you work downstream, the remote is upstream. If you don't do that, it doesn't matter. Like it'll still work, but typically you do that the first time, and then you don't have to do it after that. All right. So what's next? Well, we saw here, we verified it. We went here and we verified it. We can also verify it from our side. We can check Git status. We can check Git log on one line. We can check Git remote. We can do all those things to see what does our repo look like now. We did all those things as we went, right? And we go online and we look at it online and we see it on GitHub, and yes, it looks like it all worked out fine. So we can open up the Git repository page. We check everything. We check everything with our command prompt, and like everything seems great. Okay. Now the normal work after you set all this up is you work local. Okay. You edit, you test, you check, you inspect, you test statuses, you add, you commit, you push, and you repeat. Okay, and you go back to the beginning. Now, technically, push doesn't have to happen every time. Okay, you can do that whenever you feel like it. But the more often you push, the safer you are. Okay, and if you're in my class, the more information you get, because you'll get automated testing will kick in sometimes and tell you what's going on with your code. All right, so that's your process. Okay, and I'll show you that process in a minute. I don't want to do that one yet. Okay, so let's look at that process. Let's say I'm here in my main, and I don't want that line anymore. So I'm gonna get rid of it. I decided I don't want that line. So I'm gonna get it and save it. And let's go out here. Look what happened. Let's look what happened out here. What's it gonna tell me? It's gonna tell me, okay, that's modified. Okay, it's being tracked, but it's not staged for commit. Let's say I test it, and I say, yep, that line is gone. I'm satisfied. My tests are correct. So I can do a git add. Okay, before I do a git add, let's check something. Okay, so I've changed my program. Not only it says hello world, I've got rid of that line. Okay, now I can come out here and let's look at this. Like, is it reflected here? I'm going to refresh the page. No, it's not reflected here. If I look at main here, main still has print goodbye. Okay, if I look at main here, it's just print hello world. If I look at main out here, if I look at it in the terminal, it's just print hello world. There's no print goodbye, okay? Because I've changed it locally, but I haven't pushed. So the changes are not reflected upstream. They're not reflected on GitHub yet. So my changes are just different to me. GitHub has no concept of this yet until I push, all right? And I can't push until if I try to push now, it won't work, okay? Because I didn't stage anything, I didn't commit anything. It should say nothing left it says everything up to date, but it's not. Okay, we know that it's not up to date. Because if I do status, it says, no, it's not up to date. Look, these things aren't there yet because I didn't add and commit. So I got to do git add. Okay, git add, and now I'll do, let's just check status just to point it out. All right, now it says it's added and it's modified and it's ready for commit. Git commit -m. All right, now we can just check the status again. It says none of the commit working tree clean, but is it online? Okay, so we go up here and if I refresh this, do I see anything different? Like, no, I still added the goodbye line. If I look in main, it's still there because I didn't push. Okay, it's not coordinated until you push. So now I'll do the push now that I've done it properly. And you'll get a message that, a complicated message that says, yes, a bunch of stuff just happened. And now if I look here to see if something's different, now it says it's different. Now it says remove goodbye line. And if we go into the file and we look at the history of the file, we can see the initial commit, we added a goodbye line, then we removed a goodbye line. So there's your history. Okay. And you can also look at the history in the terminal too. You can use commands in the terminal to do diffs, to do history, to look at everything, to look at particular difference between one hash and another. Like you can basically do anything you can think of. All right. So let's go back out here. So that's the normal work after setup. What you saw me do is I edited the file, I tested the edit, I checked my status, I inspected everything, I did an add, commit, push, I saw that it was online properly, I go back to editing. Now I continue with my programming. And that's pretty much it. That's programming. I'm going to look ahead to Okay, so that kind of finishes the normal work setup. We got a few more slides here for other cases that I want to cover, but that's what you'll do. Like that's pretty much programming. Okay, you have code files. Like like we're gonna want to read me at some point, right? So let's do a touch readme. Okay, now if I look at it, there's a readme in there, and I can edit that readme. I'm just gonna write just doesn't matter what I write. All right, I'm just going to do that because I'm just trying to get through it. Okay, and I'm going to look and see, yeah, the README's got some space to it now. I can do a git status. Yeah, it's on track, so I'm confident that it's good. Like maybe I can do something like, well, let me just look at it here one more time, just because I'm always paranoid. Yeah, it looks like it's a good file, so I'm going to do a git add README. I'm going to do a git commit. I'm just gonna say git initial commit because I'm just trying to get through this. Now, is it online? Like, of course not. It's not there yet. I can come up here and if I refresh this, it says no read. There's no readme. It says, hey, you can add a readme, right? I don't want to add it here. I already added one remotely. So now I'm going to do a git push origin main. So now if I come out here and look, there it is. Some things about the program and the code. Okay, now my readme's in there. So now I got 3 files. So that process is what you do. You edit, you test, you inspect, you add, commit, push, and just keep going. Do it again, do it again, do it again, over and over and over again. And you work in small little bites, like small self-contained bites. You write a couple lines of code. You write a function. You write a part of a feature. The key to understanding this is each small, well, self-contained, testable change. That's the series of words you need to remember. Small, self-contained, testable change. Okay, something that allows the program to run even partially, okay, correctly, that you can test, and that it's something small, and then that becomes your commit, and then the series of them become your commit history. Okay. So what else do we want to talk about? We could pull remote changes to local also. So you got to imagine like you're going to be coordinating with other people, right? So if you come out here, now I'm going to do something that before I do, I'm going to tell you, don't do this. I'm gonna do something that you should not ever do when you're a beginner, and even when you're more advanced, you probably won't because you'll know better. Okay? Don't edit things here. You can, just don't. Okay? If you're very advanced, you know what you're doing, you know that an edit here is something you want to do, that's a different story, right? But as a beginner or as anybody reasonable, anybody with any good common sense, don't edit things on the repo, okay? I'm going to do it right now because I want to simulate something. Let's pretend I'm working collaboratively with somebody else. And let's suppose they modify a file here that I need those changes. You can also pull changes. So let's pretend that, now I'm going to edit it here. I'm going to do exactly what I told you not to do. But the reason I'm going to do that is because let's pretend somebody else was working properly and they updated one of these files. So I just need to update the file because I'm pretending that somebody else did, okay? So let's edit this main file. Let's pretend that somebody else wrote that, okay? And let's suppose they committed it properly, okay? Um, all right, so now my main is changed, but let's pretend I didn't do it manually. Let's just pretend that somebody else did it. Somebody else was working on it. Now there's a problem here, right? Because we don't have it here, right? If I were to run this program, it still says hello world. It doesn't say that other print line. The other print line doesn't work. Why? Because that stuff's not here. Okay, so let me check my status to make sure I didn't screw anything up. It still everything's clean. What I can do now, because there's changes online, I can do a git pull. Now if I run the program, now it's got the other line in there. Okay, so now my main has changed. Okay, so it's different. And you can see it up here too. It'll in the editor even it'll tell like, hey, this thing changed by some other process, like reload it. Okay, so now it shows the changes. Okay, so that's an example of pulling. You can push, you can pull. Now, what I did is extremely dangerous, and you shouldn't do it. And I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't do it. Let me get back to the presentation. All right. So the pull is not for the case that I just showed you specifically. The pull is for the case where somebody else worked on something that you're not working on, that you're not touching, and there's no conflict. If you do what I just did by changing it remote, something that you're also working on at the same time, you could create a conflict. What could happen is you've changed main locally, and then you also changed main on GitHub, and now those two changes clash with each other. So you should never ever go touch the code on the repository itself. You should always manage it from your local machine. You can manage everything from there. You don't need to go manage it online. If you try to manage it online, what's going to happen is at some point you're going to make a change online that you don't have locally. Then you're going to make another local change, and then those two are not going to be compatible. And when you try to push, it's going to say, nope, sorry, can't do that. There's a conflict. Okay, and when that conflict happens, it is awful to try and resolve it. Okay, so just don't do it. Okay, I showed you this case because there might be other times you're going to do it. Okay, for example, probably not in the beginning programming class, but in a more advanced programming class, that might be part of your assignment. Part of your assignment might be that you do the first half of an assignment, you complete it, and then what I do is I go into your code and I add something to it. Okay, and then you have to pull that addition and then continue working. Okay, as part of like training on how to be a good software engineer. So and in the real world, it'll also come up because you'll be working with other people and you need to pull and push each other's code, right? So like if you go back to that picture I had, I don't know where it went, this picture, right? So like at the point, like this person works on this feature and it's here, right? This person may need to pull that code because there's new stuff here. Like while they're working, there's new stuff here, but there isn't a conflict because they're working on different files. You'll notice this person's working on file 1 and 3. This person's working on file 2 and 4. Once this purple line gets merged back into the green line, the blue line might want to pull those changes up, and there won't be a conflict because they didn't step on each other. But but that could happen, right? So like, what happens if right in the middle of working on feature 2? What if this blue line messes with file 3, something from down here? What if they mess with file 3 at this point, and then this person merges file 3, and then this person right gets this point and says like, oh, I want to pull your stuff up? That one file will conflict. Okay, and then they got to resolve it. It's a big pain and it's awful. Okay, so you got to be careful with modifying things in two different places. So how do you avoid the conflict? Well, you just always synchronize. Okay, let me get back to where we were. Okay, so you'll notice that I was able to get away with doing a change remote and then pulling because I was already synchronized. And notice I even checked it, right? Like right before I did anything dumb, I did my status, right? And I checked that this was here. The problem happens when you have a remote change and a local change and you haven't synchronized between the two, and then you try to synchronize them together. That's when the problem happens. So it does work if your local is up to date, you change your remote, and then you immediately pull, that'll work. Okay. It's just something that I tell you, don't do it because you will screw it up. Okay, it's just not worth it. There's no point in doing that. Okay, there's almost no case where it helps you to go remote, work on something online, and then pull it. Okay, you can do everything from the remote up. You almost never have to work the other way. Okay, so all right. Um, so we did pulling. We showed an example of pulling. There's another way you could do things. It's called cloning. Okay, let me look ahead here for a minute. Okay, I'm not going to do the cloning because you're going to do this in your assignment. So like you're going to get a whole talk about this separately. Okay, but let me just explain what it is. Cloning allows you to pull a repository and duplicate everything simply. Okay, so like you notice when we did this, I had to do the git init, I had to set up the remote, I had to do all this configuration stuff, right? Well, you can skip all of that if you have a repository that is already set up and ready to go. You can just say just make a directory. Like there's a remote repository online. Like let's suppose here. I'll give you an example. I don't know if I want to do the example or not. These are getting really long. Okay, so here's a repository, right? So this is a repository that explains how to comment code. Let's suppose you want it. Okay, it's fairly simple. All you have to do is come up here and copy this. It's this one's public, so you come up here and copy this. Okay, you just come out here, make a directory for it. I'm going to back up one. I'm going to make another one. Actually, I'm going to do it from right here. Git clone. Let me make sure I'm doing it right. It should work. Yep. All right, let's try it. Okay, so I'm just going to do that and see what happens. All right, now if we look in here, I just cloned that commenting thing. Here it is right here. It's on the same level as the thing I was working at. If I go in there, there it is. There, this right here is this whole repository out here. Okay, so cloning, it just pulls everything. It sets up the remote for you. It does the init for you. It does everything. It just grabs this whole repository and says, like, I'm just going to duplicate everything that's in there wherever you told me to put it. Okay, so that's cloning. That's another thing you can do. And this is what you will do in assignments. Okay, so that's important, right? This you won't have to pull like that. Won't come up until you're in an advanced class, and I decide I want to throw a curveball at you and make you pull something. Okay, so that won't come up. This is going to happen a lot because this is how you start things in assignments. It's also commonly how you start things professionally. Typically, you get on the job or you get on some project you want to work on, whether it's personal or whether it's professional, makes no difference. Like somebody else has already started it, you clone it, and then you start working. Okay, and it's just one line, and then it duplicates everything for you. So like everything's already set up. I can check status on this, and it shows me everything. I can check remote on this, and it's already been registered for me. Right, it's already there. Ooh, not remove remote. Okay, so that's obvious. All right, so that's cloning. All right, so two starting workflows, one development model. Okay, if you do a local first, you do an init, you create your stuff, you create an empty repo, you send it all up. That's the process we went through for the most of this demonstration. You could also do remote first. Okay, you create something remote and then you pull it down. You can also work with somebody else's where you just clone it. All right. So I guess I should say like it's still two starting workflows. One's local, one's remote, but the other case of remote is the cloning. All right. So here's a summary of some of the commands we went through. I'm not going to cover these again. This has already been pretty long. You can go back and read those. Okay, some safety rules. Never edit or delete the Git folder manually. Don't ever touch it. Just leave it alone. Never commit secrets or private keys or passwords or anything like that. Stage deliberately. Don't blindly add things. One of the things that you should never do is this: git add star. Okay, star. Okay, don't ever do that. Star is a wild card. It means just add everything. Okay, and you can make some really big dumb mistakes doing that. I've literally had students commit their entire data file, all their data files, like commit everything on their hard drive. Okay, I've seen people commit all sorts of dumb things, password files and secrets and company documents. Don't ever do a wild card. Okay, another thing that I say never to do, but people do it. It's arguable. Don't ever do the. I say don't ever do the dot. Git add dot. But that's kind of like saying add everything, but it means add everything in the current directory. And I still say don't do that. Okay. You should name the files. You should name them all one at a time. Okay, whatever you want to do, you should name them one at a time so that you know you're adding exactly what you think you're adding. At worst, or at best, how you want to look at it, you could use a wildcard this way where you go, okay, I know I'm just adding Python files. Okay, so my advice to you when you use git add is never use a wildcard. Always list the files separately, or at the very least, list them reasonably separate, like with a wildcard and extension. Commit small, coherent, tested steps. Push regularly so the remote is current. And always use the main branch unless you're told otherwise. So the main branch is the standard branch, and you should always use it. Okay. So here are a bunch of references for all the stuff we've talked about, but that's pretty much it. Now, at the end of this, you should have this, not that. You should have the demo one, right? Let me get back to that. If you've done everything as we went, then you will have this repository. Okay. And if you're one of my students, I'm going to tell you, take a screenshot of it. Like you're going to do that and you're going to click it. That saves it. And then you're going to submit it. And that's going to be credit for this assignment. Okay. So if you're not a student and you're just doing this to follow along, like you should have ended up here. Okay. And you do with it what you want. All right. So that's it. Make sure we're done. Yeah. So that's everything. And you should now be fairly confident with Git and GitHub. Okay. We're done.